Greetings. This is Janosi here, coming to you with, the latest State of Star Wars podcast that is going to be all about Kenobi. This is the last one we'll be doing in regards to Kenobi because we've had so much Kenobi material to deal with and we need to end things on a good note. And we're definitely doing it with the Kenobi novel from 2013. And joining me here is...
This is the Spider-Fan Mania. Good to be here again.
And also...
Jedi Knight Luke. What can I say? Jedi negotiators are my speciality.
Yep. And also, we got...
Django Fett, here to talk anything but Kenobi, and a superior version.
He meant the Kenobi TV show. So, we're here to discuss the Kenobi book. So, we shall begin. So, who wants to, start with their very summarized thoughts on the book as a whole, like very summarized?
Well, I could say it's a very good example of how to make an interesting story about Obi-Wan in Tatooine without leaving the planet for unnecessary contrived reasons. But there's that.
Yeah, indeed. Look, the Django, who's next?
This book takes what is on paper a relatively uninteresting premise, if you like. Because, to be fair, Obi-Wan living his day-to-day life in exile isn't necessarily the most action-packed story, but this is case-in-point proof that if you get the right author, and of course everything is handled deftly and with respect and with care, that you get a very high-quality story out of it. And I think this is one of the Expanded Universe's shining examples. And admittedly, this is coming from someone who is still very new to the EU. But if you haven't read this yet, and you're an Obi-Wan fan, what are you doing? Pick it up. Read it.
Yes, indeed. The Django, what are your summarized thoughts on the book?
Well, I mean, if you want to find out the true experience of what happens to Obi-Wan after Episode 3, then look no further than this book. It's just a great experience with Kenobi, and, it has other characters involved too, of course. But let's just say things aren't as clear-cut as you think they are when you read this book initially. And it sort of, devolves into, different sides and who's good, who's bad. And I just think it's a really compelling story with Obi-Wan. And, of course, Legends fans have already mostly read this story. But if you haven't read this story, highly recommend it.
Yes, indeed. As for my summarized thoughts, at first I wasn't keen in the first 3-4 chapters that it didn't feature or even mention Obi-Wan whatsoever. But as I started reading more, not only did he actually show up, but let's say the story was getting more and more interesting and ended up being really good at the end. So I thought it was a great read and definitely was getting much better as time went on. So it was an awesome read. And so with that, shall we get into this book part by part?
Okay.
Okay. Well, we start with part 1, The Oasis, which is chapters 1 to 11. So this is basically setting up the Pika Oasis, as well as the characters we're gonna be pretty much dealing with. So basically being the Caldwell family, Gold family, Tusken Raiders, of course, and, of course, Ben Kenobi himself.
You've got the old Brex in there as well.
Oh, yeah, and also, Ulbrich. So, yep. So this is basically the beginning. So, guys, what do you got to say on this, on part 1?
No, to be honest with you, the first part is not the best way of introduction because the average reader while reading the book is expecting Obi-Wan's part in the story, and the story at the very beginning is hard to focus and get interested on because it's not the main point. It's introducing these other people. So it took me a considerable amount of time to actually get interested in these people because I was constantly wondering, hey, where's Obi-Wan? Did I pick the wrong book? Is something wrong with my book? Why am I reading about these other people?
Yeah, I'll admit that was my first reaction too when I was first reading the book, especially since the prologue, which is before chapter 1, did have Obi-Wan doing some getting into a fight in the Anchorhead Cantina and while Albrecht.
Yeah.
So definitely the prologue did set up some expectations, but chapters 1 to 4 didn't feature Obi-Wan. It was until like the end of 4 or 5 where he actually started hearing about him.
Just to quickly say a thing or two about the prologue, and before I make my actual point, is the prologue included in the first part of the book, or does it come before?
The prologue is included at the beginning of the book. It's the first thing, actually.
Right, so it's in part 1, the Oasis.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so, I mean, to be fair, when I first read this book, which was going on 3 years, well, my first read of it started going on 3 years ago now, and when I first read the prologue, yeah, if anyone hasn't read this book before and is watching this video right now, well, it's already been said, I bet you've just been thrown through a loop if you didn't know until now that Obi-Wan's first notable action in this book is getting into a fight in the Anchorhead Cantina. So the prologue starts off with Weil Albrecht, and he's being served a drink. He's been served clearly several drinks at the bar already, and he's described as desperately wanting to forget a fight he's had with his wife, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I could say that.
And it's a few paragraphs into that Obi-Wan comes in, and he is described, obviously due to the effort of trying to keep himself anonymous, he's described as just wearing a brown robe, and he has his hood up. And then Obi-Wan and Weil, they start talking, and I'm trying to remember, are we introduced to Orin as well, Orin Galt, or does that come later?
In the
I think it's
prologue?
later.
No, that's later.
But what does occur is a fight breaks out between several different people in the cantina, and yeah, Obi-Wan was cutting it a little bit close, because towards the end of the prologue, after the fight is over, a baby wrapped in a blanket is described as being near Weil Albrecht. So yeah, the prologue actually the prologue takes place right before the last scene of Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan drops off Luke to Owen and Beru, meaning that before handing them over to him, Obi-Wan put the boy's life at risk by trying to stop a bar fight.
The reason he's there in the first place is he's trying to find directions because he has no idea where he's at and how to get to the Lars estate.
Yeah.
So he's trying to ask directions, and then he gets into this fight, of course.
Yeah, because the fight broke out and Kenobi had to stop it.
And because of this novel taking place immediately after Revenge of the Sith, we know what's happened. Order 66 has taken place, the Jedi have been outlawed and are almost entirely wiped out, meaning that within a very short space of time, it's become top priority for Obi-Wan to keep himself anonymous. So, from Weil Albrecht's perspective, there are certain occurrences during this bar fight that are very abnormal. Be it seeing people suspended in midair, to seeing flashes of blue light from around the cantina itself. I wonder what that could be.
Must be a blaster. There's no way he's a Jedi.
Yeah, that's definitely something. So yeah. The prologue definitely was an interesting way to go about and how to. Well, the first thing we get into the book, and then the next chapters. Yeah, we get introduced to Annalene and her family, then the Orin Galt and his own family, and also the settler's call, which is basically basically this some sort of like a public investment militia of sorts, where basically the people in the Big Oasis basically rally up in order to pretty much chase off against the Sand people that attack them. So that's what we get introduced. We get introduced basically what's happening, who is who, and what is what. So yeah, and Obi-Wan just pretty much gets in the middle of all of it because, well, he's just trying to live at peace. So, but obviously that doesn't get to be as easy as he thought so at first. So definitely was getting to a bit more problematic. So yeah. The Django, what did you thought of the prologue and also the first part?
Yeah, I didn't mind the prologue and setting up this the story with all the different characters. I really didn't mind it because the writing is actually pretty good by John Jackson Miller. As always, he's done pretty good writing for all these great EU stories. So, I mean, personally for me, I didn't really mind it. It's just kind of setting up this world with all these different characters and kind of getting you into why, not just for Kenobi, but these other things that are happening, because it's just bigger than just Kenobi himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So definitely it was something to see the exile Jedi pretty much just probably gonna get into some bigger trouble.
Yeah, the weird thing about this book is it never actually shows Obi-Wan's thoughts other than this meditation. And the book also uses the method of writing I hate the most.
Which is
the reader knows what is going on and the exact details of certain person and events, but the book tries to portray itself into perspective of these other characters. So basically we know who Obi-Wan is and what kind of life he lived through, but the narrators try to make it look as weird and from the perspective of these other people. So there's like this certain disconnection between the reader and the narrator, because the reader knows information the narrator seems to not know, which is constantly being a distraction throughout the book.
In a way, but considering that Obi-Wan's not the main character, I could see why the other characters would not really know who he is. Exile Jedi that pretty much had, well, all sorts of shit that happened in the past Star Wars movies.
I don't think the narrator also knows what's going on when it comes to Obi-Wan.
I think he knows. It's just that either pretending to not know or just to put it as a mystery of sorts for some of the other characters. No idea. So yeah, but obviously people reading this book will go with the mindset that they already seen the 6 Star Wars movies. So I don't think it's really a big issue. So, because I don't really see somebody just seeing episodes 4, 5, and 6 and reading the Kenobi book without seeing episodes 1 to 3. Like, that would be stupid. Who would do that?
Yeah, or vice versa, watching the prequels, then reading Kenobi and not seeing the originals.
Yeah.
I mean, the book is written under the assumption that you watch all 6 George Lucas movies, so there is that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... And it's unrealistic to expect that somebody's going to read this book without seeing the 6 Star Wars movies. So that ain't happening. So there is that. Anything else you guys want to mention in the first part?
I have one thing. So in regards to the Obi-Wan meditation sequences, he's actually, this is kind of like reminiscent to how Star Trek does it with like the mission logs in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So he's pretty much talking to Qui-Gon Jinn because he's meditating and he's telling him what's happening throughout the day, whether he should get involved or not. And he's pretty much trying not to get involved throughout this entire endeavor. He's trying to make a small profile. But as you go throughout this, you'll find out that's going to get harder and harder.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so now we get into the second part 2, the killing ground. So this, chapters 12 to 24. This is basically when the settlers go and hunt down the Tusken Raiders, and in the middle of it, Obi-Wan and Annalene somehow manage to make contact with the leader of the Tuskens, Ayark. So that's basically that part in here. So yeah, what do you guys got to say on this second part?
We should probably just give brief summaries of the key families that this book focuses on, so then that way people get a general idea of the people we're dealing with. So even though Obi-Wan is the title character of this book goes to great lengths actually with establishing the local life within Tatooine. And to start off, you have the Calwells, which we find out in the book was originally a family of 4, but was later reduced to a family of 3. You've got Annalene, who is the mother, and her 2 children, Callie and Jabe. Callie and Jabe. And they are both nice youngsters at heart. However, Jabe has always been a lot more rebellious, especially following the death of his father, and who is Danar Calwell, who was the owner of the claim that the 3 of them have to run and look after. And due to that lack of a father figure, or of his true father, Jabe ends up feeling a great sense of a substitute father figure, if you like, with Oren Galt. And unfortunately, Oren is not the most careful of quote-unquote guardians that a lad like Jabe could have. And his own 2 kids, Mullen and Vika, they're not much better. In fact, in some ways, they're probably even worse than he is with the lack of interpersonal regard. And throughout the book, Oren tries to basically treat Jabe as Danar, who Oren was very good friends with prior to Danar's death, rather than thinking, hold on a minute, this is a young boy who's very inexperienced and needs to be kept safe. And the Galt family have a very, very negative outlook towards the Tuskens, and with Oren in charge of the Settlers' Call, well, yeah, that's not exactly gonna
Go well.
and that's not exactly gonna go well. Yeah. And Callie is I think only a year older than Jabe. They're 17 and 16 respectively. And again, a nice girl at heart, isn't anywhere near as reckless as her brother, at least not in the aggressive way, but she does feel a degree of frustration. Well, actually, both her and Jabe feel a great deal of frustration with just being stuck with the lives they've got, and she does get into a bit of trouble of her own, particularly with the Eopes that she has to maintain in the pen of the claim.
I think it's Dubex.
Oh, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The
Eopes is what Obi-Wan has.
Eop is what Obi-Wan has. What Annalene's family has are dewbacks.
Yeah. So as I say, Jabe and Callie, they're both genuinely kind and caring at heart, but because their lives are the way that they are, and with the loss of their father, they don't exactly have the best outlook on life. And Annalene is also, again, very kind and caring, but because her kids are the way that they are, and again, I assume Danar's death didn't help matters in this regard, she's a rather strict mother. But considering the type of trouble Tatooine has in store for those who aren't the most worldly wise, you can understand why she is the way that, or why she's as firm with her kids as she is, can't you?
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Definitely can make a toll out of you.
And in regards to the dangerous side of associating with certain other key families that this novel focuses on, the Galts being the biggest example, well, actually, General already mentioned it, with the, when we get to the Killing Ground, there's a massive battle between a fair number of settlers who responded to the call, the Galts included in that, against a clan of Tuscans, and in regards to Jabe not having the most exemplary of father figures following the death of his actual father, well, this mass murder ends up being a very key example of that, because Annalene doesn't trust Oren and the things that he and his children get up to, and this massacre is one of several things over the course of this book that Annalene is not happy about.
Yeah, indeed. So definitely is, it is something. So yeah, and well, what do you got to say about this, the Django and Owen?
To me, the book describes the Oren family. Oren's family is a bunch of morally good people. The two, Bika and Mullen, seems to have very little regards towards what they do, and seems to have no responsibility. And Oren himself is doing suspicious things. We'll get that to later. For the sake of profit, it just seems that the whole Gold family are not good people in general. And the fact that the Gold family and the Cowell families managed to have a kind of good relationship for the past how many years I don't remember, but
Was it 8 years following Danar's death?
I heard it was 6.
it's just impressive.
Yeah, indeed. The Django?
So in regards to the families, yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you guys. It's just that I think they all have their issues, especially I think it's Oberk, or is that who am I thinking of? Oren Gold.
The Galts.
Yeah, the Golds. I think it originates not with. I mean, he's a recent divorcee as well with him, and then you also have Annalene, who's also she lost her husband due to a conflict. Let's just say that, and so with Oren, his is just a little bit more complicated, and then you also have the issues that stem from him, and then they just they stem out to his kids. And then it leads to some more shadiness with his character in regards to this, the Settlers Fund. And there's a little bit more to that, let's just say that. And I think this actually should segue to like another faction that we need to talk about as well, is Ayark and the Tusken Raiders as well, because we didn't mention them. So Ayark is known as the Settlers as Plug Eye. The reason is because it's a she Tusken Raider. It is she has one eye, like she has like a gem or something or some kind plugged into another one of her eyes. So she did lose one of her eyes, and she just used like some type of gem or something to plug it in or something like that. And she has a vendetta. Let's just say, I mean, most of the Tuskens have a vendetta against settlers. Let's just say that. Rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of history stemming with them, but we're just not going to get into that just as of yet. But she organizes, and she's like one of the leaders for the Tusken Raider tribe. And she actually attacks one of the settlers' homes. I don't remember who it is at this time, but she attacks that, but it actually ends up being a failure because there was a settler call, and the settlers came and they actually drove them back. So she's just wants some way to push out her anger and much of the Tuscans' anger out on the settlers to get back at them because they've just been constantly losing their lands, and this originally Tatooine was theirs, but it's not theirs anymore. Barely theirs. But she's also a very important character, and she's going to become she's one of the main characters as well, not just the Annalines, the Gaults, Kenobi, but she's also a big player as well, and she's not as simple as you think she is.
Yeah, indeed. And can I mention that I found interesting how Obi-Wan and Annalyn had to pretty much, when they went face to face with Ayark after apparently Ayark's son was injured and wanted to attack them, only to succumb to his injuries and fell off. And then when Ayark and the Tuscans wanted to retrieve the body, Obi-Wan and Annalyn were pretty much face to face with Ayark, and Obi-Wan managed to pretty much talk with Ayark, even showing and Ayark managed to see Obi-Wan's lightsaber hidden beneath the cloak, which she was like, a shot at head. Which...
Sharad.
Yeah, Sharad head. So, yeah, let's just say the Tusken Raiders definitely know their Jedi Tusken Raider.
Oh, and also there's a reason why she can speak human basic. Because she was with Kashyyyk. She was the
Adopted sister, I think?
The adopted sister and the wife to Sharad Het. So,
And the mother of future Dark Crate.
Okay, Sharad head. So, yeah. Anything else you guys want to mention in part 2?
Well, I mean, it's called Killing Ground for a reason. Because the Tuscans are led. Yeah, it's pretty much a massacre, and it makes you really feel for the Tuscans, like even more so after that. And even Obi-Wan sees this, and he's just disgusted over this whole thing. So even he is just kind of like, okay, there comes to a point, this is just too much. But the settlers don't see it. They're like, oh, it's almost like they're enjoying it to an extent. It's really sickening.
And I think there was a reference where Oren mentions to Ben that there was an incident in the Lars family years ago,
Yes.
which we know what that's talking about. And I think Ayark also mentions to Obi-Wan at some point, because of the events during Attack of the Clones, the Tuscans population has decreased significantly.
Yeah, indeed. So that's something that Ayark mentions to Kenobi later. So Obi-Wan right now, he just heard from Orin and the settlers that apparently the Lars family had Shmi kidnapped. So he knows. So now we get into part 3, which is The Bright Center, chapters 25 to 35. This basically deals with the Caldwells going to Mos Eisley in order to pretty much get a Landspeeder gift that Orin had given them. So they would go to Mos Eisley to retrieve it. Little did I know that Orin had some other plans in his mind, and he was secretly going to Mos Eisley to discuss a deal with Jabba the Hutt. And that definitely doesn't go too well. Some chaos ensues, but Orin managed to escape alive because of the help of Ben Kenobi, who helped him get away from that one. So yeah, that happened.
There's a really impressive scene. The scene where Annalyn says oh look, there's that Lars family, and there's also this baby. And then, for quote-unquote mysterious reasons, the Landspeeder goes out of control and moves on its own. Right after they saw Owen and Beru and Luke. Well, that's convenient. I wonder what's going on with that.
All 4 of us know what happened. Obi-Wan triggered it using the Force.
Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan panicked after seeing Owen and Beru and speeders using the Force to move.
should we just quickly explain or quickly just mention why the Calwells went to Mos Eisley in the first place?
Sure.
Oren, in his attempts to maintain a good relationship, that's the most diplomatic way I can think to put it, with the Calwells, and there are several things he does to try and sweeten the pot, and this is one of them. This trip to Mos Eisley was actually an early birthday present for Annalene by Oren. So they had a day out, and I want to say, was Lily a good friend of Annalene's that we meet in the story? Was she put in charge of running the claim while she was gone?
No, it was somebody else called Tarlup who was put in charge of it when they went to Mos Eisley, courtesy of Oren.
Yeah. So yeah, early birthday present for Annalene. That's why the Calwells were in Mos Eisley, and whilst they were in Mos Eisley, Callie took notice of Ben. Well, Obi-Wan, because I believe he was trying to feed his EOP. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And she just called out to him and said, "Ben."
Yep. Indeed. So yeah, all that happened, and do you guys want to discuss the deal that happened between Oren and Jabba Stocks?
It seems like Oren thought he could pay Jabba the Hutt back after borrowing his money because he thought there could be a successful harvest when it comes to the moisture farming, but it didn't really work, and Oren tried to avoid Jabba the Hutt as much as possible, but then thugs arrived to Oren's business, and it starts to become a problem.
Yep.
And then Jabba doesn't actually appear in this book. He's only referenced, like many characters.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we don't see Jabba, we meet Mosef Benid. Now, in case you don't know who the hell Mosef Benid is, he's a character who appeared in the Marvel comics, who was the second incarnation, second version of Jabba the Hutt. The first version was the version that was in A New Hope novelization, and the deleted scenes from episode 4, where you saw the human version of Jabba the Hutt, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
The second version was this weird-looking alien with whiskers, which would later retcon to be Mosef Benid. And the third version is what we know. So the book acknowledges aspects, and Mosef Benid basically says, "You might as well consider me Jabba." I think that's a good nod.
Yeah, because basically Mosef Benid was basically Jabba's Nimbanel accountant, the one that handled all of Jabba's financial affairs. So, yeah, that's pretty much what he is. So yeah, and how did the encounter go, by the way?
It went about as well as you'd expect when dealing with... Is it fair to say that Jabba is Tatooine's most notable crime lord?
He's the number one. Who else would it be?
So...
I mean, Jabba's uncle at this point of time is still alive, so who knows?
Huh.
Well, even so, though, as far as the locals are concerned, yeah, Jabba is the top dog, and when you're just some common folk and you get involved with the Hutts, you'd better be prepared to pay your debts, because I'm trying to remember, is it stated exactly how much he owes? How much Oren owes?
I know it went in the 10,000s or more.
Yeah, so literally thousands of credits, and how long was he given, if I recall correctly? Was it a day or two?
Yeah, it was like a day.
Yeah, given only about 24 hours or so, maybe 48 hours or so to pay that money back. And Oren's like, wait, no, please please be patient. And of course, with Mosep Benid being associated with Jabba, he's not having any of that. And then a massive blaster fight kicks off.
And then, of course, some random silhouette was somewhere inside the facility in Mos Eisley. And, well, who was that random person?
Nobody knows.
I guess you could say nobody knows, but though somebody knew, because apparently the random person, one of the Java stocks, and then for some reason that person that recognized the specific mysterious Celtent, then he was like levitated or something and then knocked down, and then one of the freaking crows was like now fitting on his body. And the mysterious Celtent just left. And Oren never saw who it was. Yeah, very interesting. So yeah.
Another instance of one of those, the reader knows what is going on, but the narrator and the characters don't know what's going on type of situations.
Yeah, indeed. Though we know that it was obviously Kenobi who saved Oren's butt in that one. So we know that much for a fact. So yeah. So that was indeed interesting. And so, Django, what do you think of this?
So it shows more of the shadiness with Oren Galt, and it will come to very much desperation because he doesn't have the funds, and he's using the Settler's Call as a way to pay those debts.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows his desperation in that regard.
Oh, and speaking of being desperate, he actually then tries to get certain other people involved by force very soon after. After the situation with Mosep Benid and those thugs, Oren's desperation reached breaking point. Was it still in part 3, or were we in part 4 of the book when he visits Danar's claim in the middle of the night?
Danar's claim is part 4.
What, the middle of the night visit?
Yes.
Right, is there anything more to say about part 3, or should we move into part 4 starting with that?
Got anything to mention on part 3, guys?
Well, I think another thing to keep in mind is like, Annalene and Kenobi actually have a bit of a relationship together. There is a bit of a thing going on there as you're reading this, and it's pretty obvious. And even the kids are like, well, they see it with Oren Galt at first, Annalene and Oren Galt, and even the kids are saying like, hey, just be with him or something, because you both are single and all that other stuff. So they're actually pushing that too. But later on, it's Annalene and Kenobi, and you start to see this romance kind of just start to grow throughout. So just keep that in mind as well.
I wouldn't really describe it as romance, more like Annalene understanding Obi-Wan. And the book does this thing a lot, which I have to mention a lot. Obi-Wan mentions his past, and he tries to be as vague as possible. He could have at least said, I know he couldn't say he was a Jedi and all, but he could have at least said something like he had a bad relationship with his son or something. But he tries to be as vague as possible, saying like, oh, I'm just here because, reasons I don't explain, and everyone in the Oasis thinks like, there's something to this guy, Ben. And the more he tries to be secretive, the more people are gonna be interested in him. And I think there was at this one point where Kelly learns that Obi-Wan's family name is Kenobi.
Ah, yes.
And that doesn't become really much of a deal because, surprisingly, Kenobi is a name that is pretty common in Tatooine, I guess.
Just as Antilles and Skywalker, so there's that. Indeed. But yeah, so yeah, and Aline is having feelings for Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan does not have them. At least does not want to return them because he has his mission in Tatooine to protect Luke Skywalker. So he cannot.
Yeah, and I think too is like he can't show that, and of course in the end it's it doesn't work out. But initially, I think I did see that kind of like he kind of like was trying to reject the whole thing. Like he was trying to fight this this sort of attraction that he had for her as well. And of course it doesn't work out, but that's also something too.
There is that, yeah. So yeah, okay. So
And the book mentions Satine and
yeah,
and Theory, both of them. I wonder why they didn't mention that one woman from Clone Wars Gambit trilogy, but there's that.
Oh god, there's that. Anyway, so okay, now we get to part 4, the Rift. Basically, chapters 36 to 47, and yeah, this is where shit gets ugly. So yeah, Luke, take it away.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So we're coming into the last quarter of the book, round about there. An unexpected attack happens on the Albrecht's while and his wife, who I'm not sure is named or not. And I'm trying to remember, does the Settlers' Call go off before this, or is it completely unexpected?
I think it goes after. I don't know. No,
It's,
I remember that.
So, but either way, so the Albrechts are caught off guard, and you have Tusken warriors, or so it seems at least, beating the Albrechts to a pulp, and as I say, off guard. They don't know what to do, and Obi-Wan actually steps in to intervene and manages to fend the assailants off.
However, something happened. What happened? What happened was that Obi-Wan managed to see Oren disguised as a Tusken Raider, which, oof, that didn't go well.
And I believe we also find out. I believe we find this out a bit later on, but wasn't Jabe also involved with that as well?
Yeah, he was taken by the Tusken Raiders.
Once again, an example of why Oren Galt is not an exemplary father figure. So, following the attack and on the Albrechts via Oren leading this impersonation of them, is that when we cut to him visiting Danar's claim in the middle of the night?
Yes.
And there he gets extremely desperate towards Annalene, and he says, I need to pay off this debt. I got involved with Jabba, and Annalene is absolutely shocked by this. It's like, wait, you dealt with Jabba? And if I recall correctly, then doesn't Oren try to go to the cash machine of the claim to either take out every credit from the drawer or try and make some sort of transaction using it and literally try and take the claim's entire fund to pay off this debt?
I don't know if he did that there.
It was one of the two.
I think since he tried to marry after Banks, so he tried to use some kind of a property value to pay up Jabba, and if that didn't work, even tried to marry Kelly.
Oh, yeah,
which was kind of creepy.
Yeah, so it goes from in part 3 Oren wanting to marry Annalene because of their
money. Money
the-
is the main reason.
Well, he was trying to use the goodwill he'd sort of smothered the Calwells with over the years as the excuse to eventually marry Annalene because of Danar having been dead for several years. But then on this night, when trying to persuade Annalene to get involved with paying off this debt to Jabba, the subject of marriage comes up again, and she says, I don't think either of your kids are necessarily marriage material for my kids. And then Orin brings up Callie and says to Annalene, he tries to justify it and by saying, she's almost old enough, Annalene. And
So
then
disgusting.
Annalene quite rightly responds with, in 3 years, because Callie is only 17, and Orin is how old?
Actually, it could be 50s, because it says he was born in 69 BBY.
Oh my god, yeah, 50.
Oh my god.
Is it? Wait, is it really?
The bare
wait,
minimum.
So, yeah, he took things way, way, way too far with that.
Yeah, certainly. Oh boy.
I think when that moment happened, he turned to a desperate criminal to a cretin in a minute. Like, I wanted him to suffer the most, because, like, later on you'll find out, like,
Oh,
he does some more terrible stuff. So.
yeah. In fact, speaking of that terrible stuff, let's get into the big event. Basically, the settlers going after Kenobi. So,
Just very quickly, so after Orin does the whole thing with trying to lure the Cowells into getting involved with this, at this point as well, because I think it had been built up for at least a few chapters running up to now, that Orin wants to spearhead. Was it like an assassination? Not an assassination attempt. But he wanted to kill Obi-Wan.
he was rallying the settlers to kill Obi-Wan, yes.
And after after Orin did his thing of trying to lure the Cowells into paying off this debt, Obi-Wan arrives and warns Annalene to be ready because of this. And yeah, then we come to the rally itself the next day.
So Orin manages to rally all the settlers at his cause, and they go after Kenobi in the Juneland Wastes. And so they're pretty much going to go after him. They find him, and then Obi-Wan has several tricks up his sleeve. First, he brings a herd of bantas going after the settlers, managing to hit some of their spears and stuff. And then Obi-Wan basically does using a loudhailer, and Obi-Wan managed to pretty much exposed Orin by saying how much he was the one behind the fake Tusken Raider raids, and how it was a ploy to pretty much get all the people to sign to the Settlers Call Fund. And at first, people were like wondering if he was true or not, and then Jabba's goons showed up and pretty much confirmed, yeah, Orin owes us money, so pay us up. And from there, a fucking battle ensued.
I think the book describes that the settlers and the hut goons have some kind of a mutual unspoken agreement that they hate each other, but they try to stay away from each other as long as possible. So unless somebody attacks the other side first. So what we could basically see is like Tatooine is basically separated into 3 separate groups. The first group being the settlers, the other group being the Tuskens, and the other being the, Hut and their associates. And 3 of them all hate each other. None of the 3 factions like the other, it seems.
Yep, none. So there's that.
Just another quick thing as well. This is another thing that Obi-Wan mentions when speaking to Orin using the loudhailer. I'm not sure if you guys will remember this, but very early on in the book, like I think it's within the first 4 or 5 chapters, there's a scene with, I'm not sure if she was a young girl or a young woman, but she went by the name Tyler Bezard, if I recall correctly, and she was mourning the death of her father. And I believe Orin was trying to be a source of comfort and support to an extent, and Mullen being as socially inept as he is, and of course Vika isn't much better either, just made the situation worse. But I believe the murder of Tyler Bazard's father, I believe that's revealed in this exchange with Obi-Wan using the loudhailer to talk to Oren. I believe that situation is revealed to have been orchestrated by Oren and company, or Oren as well.
Yeah, it was. So, yeah. Turns out that all along, Oren has been doing all sorts of shady shit. And yeah, settlers and Java's goons, they pretty much start shooting at each other, especially settlers shooting at Java's goons because Java's goons wanted Oren, but they, let's just say the settlers wanted revenge on Oren first, so there's that. Oren decides to take his land speeder with Anoline captive and Mullen and Vika with him to chase after Kenobi, and they get inside the caves, and Oren is demanding Kenobi to get out, and Kenobi's not getting out. He's making some sort of rumbles with, I believe it's the Force, probably, by causing the rumbles on the walls and the ceiling. So there's that. But then turns out that was probably not a good idea because that woke up something big. What is it, guys?
A great dragon.
Yes. A great dragon. And Obi-Wan was fucking forced to fight him with his lightsaber. Yep. Jedi versus dragon.
Yeah, that's really weird because if you play the KOTOR game, even some Jedi like Revan, who's obviously more powerful than Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
Had to rely on landmines to get rid of and kill the Great Dragon, but we now see Obi-Wan just killing Tusken with his Force and lightsaber. So, like, are we seeing something wrong here? Like, how is Obi-Wan this powerful?
Well, bear in mind, Owen, this book takes place pretty much immediately after the events of Revenge of the Sith. Like, by the time the book ends, we're only, a matter of weeks or months after that? It's not like, the Kenobi show where it's 10 plus years.
No, I do buy that Obi-Wan is in his prime, but how does Obi-Wan does something even Revan failed to do? Do you know what happens if Revan approaches the Great Dragon?
Gets eaten.
KOTOR?
Gets eaten.
He gets instant killed. But Obi-Wan somehow managed to beat the Great Dragon in one-on-one combat. Like, what is this?
I'll chalk it off to the game simply for I guess gameplay reasons, making it Revan impossible to face him on his own. I'll chalk it up to that. That's probably why, and in a way hindered from a continuity standpoint.
And it's not like Obi-Wan very slightly slashed, say, the back of the Great Dragon once and it dropped to the floor. No, Obi-Wan was striking it left, right, and center, having to leap around to stay out of the way. I mean, it was pretty badass, him taking the Great Dragon on like that. What do you two think, General Django?
I thought it was badass. Yeah, Obi-Wan against the Great Dragon. That shit was awesome.
It may be badass, but it doesn't make that much sense considering what I saw in previous EU.
Okay, so the version that in Kenobi is the Canyon Crate Dragon. So this is the smallest variant of the Crate Dragons. Smallest as in being average height of 10 meters, average length 30 meters. But still, I mean, that's still massive. The one in Knights of the Republic, I think it was a greater crate. So that is probably, it's 100 meters, I think. I think that's the one in Knights of the Republic. I may be wrong, though.
Actually, the same Crate Dragon variant. It's just that the KOTOR one probably was a lot bigger than the one Kenobi handled. So...
yeah. It had to be much smaller, of course.
Yeah. Indeed. So yeah, it was badass Kenobi facing the dragon. Like, It was awesome, and that's where Orin pretty much saw that he was a Jedi, and Orin wanted to reveal to the Empire, to reveal Kenobi to the Empire, but that led him to try to escape in the damaged land speeder, and let's just say that Orin pretty much crashed, and and we never saw him again, or did we? Dun dun dun! What happened to Orin, the Django?
So he survives the speeder crash, but is paralyzed from the waist down and badly burned. And he wakes to find he's been taken in by the Tuscans and wearing a breathing mask, and he looks just like a Tuscan, and he's a slave pretty much. So,
Well, some could argue it's better than getting killed by the Oasis people or Java's goons. So, surprisingly, it was a quote-unquote happy ending for Oren, if you think about it.
And something that I feel should be noted is that the three key words that came out of Obi-Wan's mouth during this last massive encounter, mainly before the Great Dragon revealed itself, was he was repeatedly warning Orin, turn back now. Like he was telling Orin, I've seen what you'll be if you continue down this path. Turn back before it's too late. And of course, Orin didn't listen, and this is what happened as a result. He gets forced to work to operate one of the moisture evaporators, because the moisture evaporators, the ones that Orin has and the ones that was at Danar's claim, both produced really fresh water, which for a planet with a climate like Tatooine's, you kind of need. And basically the Yark says to Orin, you produce water, we feed you in return, and you live.
Yeah,
Basically.
so, I mean, to me it seems like Oren had a surprisingly peaceful ending with all the things he did. The Tuscans don't want to kill him, as long as he makes the doesn't want to seem to kill him. Jabba's goons gave up, and he's far away from the Oasis, so, well, I guess it's a happy ending or something.
also keep in mind that Tuscans don't have really medical knowledge, especially for humans. So they didn't really treat his injuries. So he's probably suffering a lot. And he's a slave too, so he's forced to do these repairs and stuff like that, hard labor. But overall, this is a justified fate for Orin. He deserves to suffer.
Yeah.
So this is his fate he deserves.
According to Wikipedia, Orin did die, so it's probably he succumbed to his injuries sometime later. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The book doesn't make it clear.
Well, I said
On
Wikipedia. I didn't say the book, so. Oh,
The book's last words regarding Orin were that he refused to speak again after only saying a handful of words due to the discomfort of the face mask.
so, but it's natural to explain to assume that he fucking died because succumbed to his injuries and stuff, and not to mention we never hear of him ever again. So, yeah, so he pretty much died. As far as I know, he died before the events of Episode 4. So.
Yeah, but then again, I do have questions for this. If this book is before the legacy, right? So, when did Asherah took over the Tuscans, and Ayark is nowhere to be seen in the legacy comics. So, when did Asherah came back?
I know that it must have been a few years after. I don't think it was ATBY. Could have been a bit after.
Speaking of Orin's family, very quickly, it's mentioned a couple of times much earlier on in the book that Orin and his wife had 3 kids. There was Mullen, Vika, and Vika actually had a twin brother, I believe, who was the first of Orin's children to die. And in this final encounter, Mullen is killed, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Oren's family was pretty much, yeah, like wrecked. So that much is there. So yeah, that definitely didn't go well. And it's possible that that fight between Asherad and Obi-Wan could have been 17 BBY.
It's 18.
Well, I say 17 because I'm checking dates, and the Life and Legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi has 19 BBY, 17 BBY, 7 BBY, and 0 ABY in terms of flashbacks. So it could be 17 BBY. It cannot be 19 BBY because not only is that way too close to episode 3, but also not only does the Kenobi book have to happen, but also the first two last of the Jedi books.
They are 19.
So yeah.
Obi-Wan only appears in the first two, so it still fits.
Yeah, so that fight must have been had to have been either 18 or 17 BBY. There's no way that it there's that. So yeah, so overall thoughts on part 4. Oh, before we get to the final overall thoughts, the end has Annalene and her children meeting Kenobi in his house, saying some last goodbyes. Kenobi gives Annalene's data pad back to her, which is her acceptance to the University of Alderaan. And she and her family depart in the Lady of Bastille in order to go to Alderaan to get a new life. And that's pretty much how this ends. So yeah, what do you guys think of part 4?
And then it's gonna watch a spectacular green laser show in less than 20 years, so there's that.
Oh, fuck.
What an experience.
Oh, fuck, yeah. Yeah. That ain't cool. Luke, what do you think?
So the datapad thing with Annalene's application to a university on Alderaan, that was mentioned much earlier on in the book, but of course we find out towards the end that her application ended up being accepted despite it literally being drafted decades ago. And the big battle with the settlers, the Tuskens, and Jabba's goons, that was all great, and of course Obi-Wan slaying a crate dragon. I mean, again, pretty damn badass. And in the aftermath of all of that, because of how secretive Obi-Wan had been, Annalene comes to the realization that, in his own way, Obi-Wan had been lying about why he was there and the things that he was doing to her, which, considering how close to and fond of Obi-Wan she became over the course of the book, did hurt her initially. And Obi-Wan doesn't feel proud of that by any means, but when Annalene, Jabe, and Callie board the transport to head to Alderaan, and so Annalene can do this exhibition, she makes peace with the fact that Obi-Wan is a very good, noble man at heart, and accepts that there must be a reason why Obi-Wan is there, whether it be to protect a family, to atone for something he feels bad about, whatever it may be. Someday he'll feel ready to leave, and looking at Tatooine's orbit from outer space, she gives Obi-Wan a very, very distant, obviously, final goodbye and thanks him. Oh, and the claim, Danar's claim, was left to Tarlup in the Cowells, leaving Tatooine behind.
Yes.
So that's something to mention.
And let's see, what was there? I think there was at some point where Annalene mentions that there was still good in Oren, which Obi-Wan, after listening to that, made them remind him of Anakin. Yeah. I don't really understand how exactly Anakin and Oren is similar. The book's trying to...
No, not Anakin. Like, when Obi-Wan heard, it reminded him of when Padme said there was still good in Anakin. So that's what he got in his mind.
The book tries to have some kind of a comparison between Anakin and Oren and to show that they were similar in circumstances. But I don't really buy that. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, me not so much either, cause yeah, they may have had some similarities, but at the end of the day, Anakin pretty much any sort of qualities he had as a good person were pretty much completely buried by his dark side persona and his need to become to the dark side to save his wife and children. And when he lost all of that, well, he pretty much fully went to the dark side. So let's just say that Anakin's good was indeed there buried somewhere, whereas Oren, I don't really know. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if he actually had any good left in him at the end of the day.
And I don't think Oren had the experience Anakin had to have his downfall, because if you watch the movies and read plenty of EU, you see there's a lot of incidents where it caused Anakin to fall to the dark side, and you don't really get to know what up with Oren. Oren didn't suffer as much as Anakin did to come to his point. Like, it's not like, why did he borrow money from people like Jabba the Hutt in the first place? Like, dude, what is wrong with you? You know that Jabba is the least. I mean, the book does say that no one else would borrow and lend him the money, but you rather live poor than being indebted to Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, definitely. So there is that indeed. Django, you got any final thoughts on part 4?
Yeah, I think it's a good conclusion with Annalene and the family, and even with I think who is the Jabe? I think is it Jabe?
Yeah, it's the son of Annalene.
Her son.
Even he towards the end, he was kind of obnoxious in the beginning. Towards the end, him realizing that, oh, this guy isn't too bad, and him saving them, and he actually, he was redeemed in the end, and he wasn't suckered in with Oren's lies.
Mm-hmm.
Only in the beginning and the middle, but towards the end, he just kind of changed.
If I recall correctly, I think the wake-up call for Jabe happened following partaking in the attack on the Albraks.
Yes.
Because if I recall correctly, after that, Ayark's clan of Tuskens captured him, and Obi-Wan really had to go to the nines to try and bargain for Jabe's life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason the Tuskens weren't happy with him was because of wearing Tusken garbs, which is not. That's pretty much sacrilege to the Tuskens themselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
When an outsider does that.
Yep.
But when Jabe is returned to Annalene and Callie, which I believe is the same night as Oren trying to force the Caldwell family into paying off the debt to Jabba, after shooing Oren out the store, and Obi-Wan saying to the Caldwells, you have to be ready, we then get a moment where, Jabe explained everything that happened to his mum, and then I think he started to break down, because he then started to realise, I've been going down this path, I just wanted something more for my life, I didn't want to do any of this. Or rather, it wasn't his intention to get involved in these acts. And I think there's a meditation passage that Obi-Wan has following that moment where he says, Jabe Caldwell, I sense redemption in him. He's not a lost cause, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also, another thing too is, like, I think me and Luke are on the same boat about this. A thing that kind of bothered us is, as Obi-Wan is, speaking through, he's speaking in meditation to speak to Qui-Gon.
Oh yeah.
We were kind of hoping towards the end, like some type of response or anything of that nature. Unfortunately, we never got that at all. And even the TV show actually did that, which is kind of like that's the only slight positive with that. But I do wish there was kind of like that acknowledgement from Qui-Gon that he is listening and he's like saying something to Obi-Wan.
Qui-Gon does respond to Obi-Wan in the life and legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah,
But not here in this book.
Yeah, in this story specifically.
Yeah, so Qui-Gon does not talk to Obi-Wan at all in this story. It happens shortly after in the Last of the Jedi books. That's where he pretty much gets his talks with Qui-Gon. Happens shortly after. So, and then of course we get the life and legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
the proper conversation, well, Qui-Gon appearing and actually speaking to Obi-Wan in the Kenobi show, that's literally the one praise that I will give the Kenobi show over this book. I do think it was a bit disappointing that by the time of the last meditation passage, which is how the book itself ultimately ends, that Qui-Gon didn't appear before Obi-Wan or even speak to him, which I thought we were going to get.
It's more of a continuity reason.
yeah, it's more of a continuity reason. It's not the book that wanted to do it. It's just that because he already talked to Qui-Gon very shortly after this story. That's why Qui-Gon doesn't talk to Obi-Wan here. So.
For example, in here, that Obi-Wan cannot. The timeline is specifically, the book is specifically designed in a way that Obi-Wan is still not supposed to know that Vader is alive. And the timeline only fits, so you can't have Qui-Gon responding to Obi-Wan, which will break canon.
Yeah.
Oh, then again, this book is written in a post-TCW era of Star Wars, so... And Mortis arc was already out, so maybe they could have.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with this. No, I don't think so. So.
Qui-Gon did talk with Obi-Wan in the Mortis arc, so if he wanted to appear, then he could. But the question being, should he?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I think it's.
What do you mean? There's nothing to do with it. Qui-Gon already has communicated with Obi-Wan in the TCW. It's not like he didn't do it before.
Yes, but TCW is a whole can of worms in terms of continuity. So, but excluding that, we know that Obi-Wan can talk to Qui-Gon because Episode 3 says that Yoda has training with Qui-Gon. So it's not impossible. It's just that we don't expect him to do it every single freaking day in his exile. So
I think the Life and Legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi also explained that Obi-Wan wasn't ready to get the answers from Qui-Gon.
Yeah, there is a point in which in the Last of the Jedi books and in Life Legend that Obi-Wan definitely was not yet ready to be fully trained by Qui-Gon, only until a specific point that he actually get ready. So that could be another reason why Qui-Gon has yet to talk to Obi-Wan in this story until the next one is when he actually does. The Last of the Jedi, the first book.
Something I would like to make a mention of, and we probably should have made a mention of it much earlier on, and it's something that's kind of been touched upon, but I think we should just say a little bit about this more directly. Obi-Wan's struggle with PTSD is actually highlighted very, very thoroughly throughout this book, which is very surprising considering he is more of a secondary character rather than the main star, despite him being on the cover and his surname being the title of the book. But like, just to throw a couple of examples, during a couple of the passages, Obi-Wan makes mention when communicating with Qui-Gon about having Anakin's lightsaber. Like, the first time he mentions it, he says, "I have Anakin's lightsaber, you know. It's sitting here in my hands." And then I believe it gets mentioned again during the meditation passage that we find out Callie overhears, and he says something like, "I think you know what I have in my hands, Qui-Gon. I need to put it away, but I struggle to do that." And I think it's either in those particular passages or maybe other ones that happen at other points in the book where he outright says, I wish I could have done something to help Anakin. And he's like, if only I'd known what he would turn into. And on more than one occasion in the book, when a negative thought crosses his mind during these moments, he's like, no, I shouldn't be bothering you with this, Master Qui-Gon.
Another interesting part is Obi-Wan has a house. It's not that major, but considering it's living in a freaking cave in the show, I have to point it out that Obi-Wan actually lives in the house from episode 4.
Yeah, there is that. So anyway, anything else to mention on part 4, guys?
Nah.
No? Okay, well, then we get to the final section of this podcast before the conclusion, and that's, of course, the EU connections. So, let's begin. The EU connections with the Kenobi books. So, what do you guys got?
Well, let's see. Zane Carrick from the Knights of the Old Republic comics.
Yep, he was mentioned in one of the meditation.
And I think there was like this really, really weird reference. Like, there's like a scene where Obi-Wan says like he did fight against the Tusken Raiders during episode 1, which is only shown in Star Wars Obi-Wan, the video game.
So that video game was referenced here. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, some weird things.
That's something.
Well, not EU reference, but Satine Price, her Duchess, is mentioned here.
Yeah.
It's not a big reference to the point it's really distracting, like the one we talked about in the Dark Plagueis podcast, but still.
And Siri Tachi is also mentioned once, I think, so that's a connection to the Jedi Apprentice books.
Wait, I forgot to mention this. We forgot to mention it. It's like, the book says, like, the reason why Obi-Wan uses the name Ben is because that's the kind of nickname they came from Satine herself.
Yeah, that's what the book claims, though I don't know if that's true or not.
Wait, so just back on point, so Satine is mentioned, so that's a TCW connection, but then you've also got Siri Tachi, as I said, so that's
Secrets.
A connection to Jedi Apprentice.
Since she's more described as a love interest, it's more like Secrets of the Jedi.
Well, Siri Tachi herself originated Jedi Apprentice, so... But either way, yeah, basically both love interests of Obi-Wan are mentioned.
The most obvious EU reference being, in this book, being the mentions of Sharad Het.
And Asherah.
So that obviously ties back to the Outlander comics.
And let's see, Kara Holt, the Knight Errant series.
Ah, yes. Yeah, she was from Knight Errant. Interesting seeing references to Knight Errant.
Then again, Kara Holt and Zane Carrick is more of a John Jackson Miller referencing his own works. So there's that.
I could see what you say there.
Well, he's not the only author in Star Wars EU history to have done that. Drew Carpenter, anyone?
And Timothy Zahn is the worst example of case for that.
There's that. So yeah. You got any other references, guys?
I wouldn't say reference, but I would say the continuity is pretty tight, because if it was written by a incompetent writer, it would say that Obi-Wan would still know Vader is alive, but the book still states that Obi-Wan still thinks Vader is dead, and he doesn't know this is not the truth until the rise of Darth Vader. So I think is that a reference?
No. No, that's just pretty much setting up that Obi-Wan at this point doesn't know that he's alive. So, no, it's not a reference. So yeah, the Django, what do you got for you connections in this book?
So I just have one small one, and it's from episode 2, the Lars Owens attack. That's more elaborated in the Attacks of the Clones novelization, but that is also referenced here.
There's that, yeah. Okay. As for me, well, I got plenty of your references, so I'll give you a fun one. So remember the cantina from the prologue of this book?
The Anchorhead Cantina?
Yeah, well, that's basically Unix's joint. The same cantina that you visit in Knights of the Old Republic 1. Yes, the exact same one that you visit Bastila's mother. That same
I
cantina.
forgot. Oh.
Well, how did that thing last for more than 3,000 years?
It changed owners, but it's the exact same establishment. So, yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, the author of Kenobi, John Jackson Miller, said that it's the same cantina from Knights of the Republic, just different ownership. So he confirmed.
Well, then again, he also wrote a lot of KOTOR comics, so there's that.
So yeah, that cantina is the same one from Knights of the Republic 1. So yeah, let's also not forget to mention Darth Bane was mentioned here in this book as well.
Yeah, about that weird thing. It says that Kara Holt was from the time of Darth Bane. I mean, kind of true, considering they were both major players during the new Sith Wars, but Ninth Era's like 40 or 50 years before Darth Bane's time. Bane's Path to Destruction and Jedi vs. Sith. And the book saying Kara Holt and Bane are from the same period of time. I don't really know about that. It's much of a stretch to say they're from the same era.
Maybe there.
I mean, Kara Holt and Darth Bane could have been alive during the same time. There's that, but I don't really know.
No idea, but yeah. Anyway, so there's that. Arkajeff is mentioned here.
Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
He was mentioned here. The Great Hyperspace War was mentioned here. The one from the Tales of Jedi Fall of the Sith Empire. So.
And the Golden Age of Sith.
Well, if you count it as indirect mention, yeah, in a way. So, yep. Then there's Tarloop, the male Shistavanen. He actually appeared in Tatooine Manhunt. Yep.
And Moshe Beneath himself is a reference of the Star Wars old Marvel comics.
Yeah, he's an interesting one in regards to use sources. So there is that. Then apparently we got Alcara, a researcher of the Bureau of Amnesty Socialization in Tatooine. So he basically was like supposedly the prior owner of Jabba the Hutt's palace, according to the book Darksaber, which he was first mentioned in that book, and he's mentioned in this Kenobi book. So there's that there. And then the Kygan Whistlers, those vicious carnivorous flying creatures that were there in the part in which Oren was going to get almost tortured by Jabba's thugs until Obi-Wan saved him. Those actually first appeared in the Hot Gambit.
And I think there's a character called Lochog? Whatever the hell his name is.
Lochog.
His name was... He first appeared in Star Wars Adventures journals. I think it was like a story called Spare Part.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about, Lojog. Yeah, male Nimana who worked for Java. He was basically the cousin of Moshe Beneath. First appeared in, Spare Parts, Star Wars Adventure Journal 11. So there you go. You guessed that one, Doan. Then there's the Genissarin Sand Monkey. That was actually first mentioned in the Course of Knights 2 book, and is mentioned here.
I didn't know that.
So, yep, the monkey was mentioned by Jorp and Moshe Beneath. So then there's Krydos, parasitic burrowing anthropod native to Tatooine. Though that it's mentioned here, but it appears in Star Wars Episode 1, The Gungan Frontier. That's his first appearance.
Yeah, what's up with these obscure sources like Star Wars Obi-Wan and, Tatooine method, referencing these sources that nobody cares about?
Well, every EU source adds its own elements to the table, so there's that. So, yep, then we got Heptuin, who was first mentioned in the Essential Atlas, and makes his mention here. And then of course, there's the Celtrons from the Star Wars Marvel comics, so of course they would be a reference to that. Then the Draco fruit, which was one of the fruits mentioned, I think it was by Annelene. That was actually first mentioned first appeared in Scavenger Hunt. Basically, one of those West End Games role-playing books. So, yep. Then there's the Cigara, which are basically Star Wars version of cigars. Those first mentioned the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then they first appeared in Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. So, you got those, and yeah, those are the ones I noticed in terms of EU connections. So, yep. Do you guys got any more?
I don't.
Luke, the Django?
No.
Okay, well, then shall we get on to the conclusion then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, now we'll get into the conclusions. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
This book, despite having not that much Obi-Wan appearance, did a really good job of understanding his character and his activities during Tatooine. And proved to us that Obi-Wan, Exile, and Tatooine could actually be used to tell an interesting story without forcing Obi-Wan outside of Tatooine. What an interesting concept!
Yep. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, next.
For me, as I say, got around to reading this book for the first time starting nearly 3 years ago. So this was my introduction to the expanded universe, really, if not counting the games I was familiar with long before reading this book. Well, this was my first EU book, at least, and I have to say I think I got really lucky with having this book as one of the first ones that I got. As I say, it takes a relatively simple idea, which is not the most action-packed of premises, and creates and it's an exemplary story within the archives of the EU in terms of quality. As Darwin mentioned, despite Obi-Wan being more of a secondary character in this book, the time that we do get with him is really put to great use, and character-wise he's spot on. The civilians of Tatooine who we meet over the course of the book are all a very colourful cast of characters who, in one way or another, you actually do care about, which, you know, is a massive surprise. And if you're more familiar with the new canon and thinking about getting into the EU, this is probably one of the best stories with which to do that, because it's completely, or it's for the most part standalone, really, isn't it? You know, there's nothing you have to worry about being familiar with outside of the films themselves in order to be familiar with the main idea of what's happening here. And yeah, I honestly think this book is up there as among the best of what the EU has to offer.
Okay. The Django?
So I'll say this once and I'll say it again. This is a great Western. Because this is a Western. It's Obi-Wan, essentially the lone wanderer, coming into like desert setting, you know, akin to many other Westerns out there. And he wants to hide the pain of his past, but is forced to go out and be a Jedi once again and save the day. This is just a really, really good and compelling story with Obi-Wan and these other characters, and just a really, just a great story overall. So if you haven't read this, I mean, what are you doing? Come on, you have to read this if you haven't already. But I mean, as we have all said, we really enjoyed this story and can't recommend it enough.
That leaves to me. This book was solid read, great read, definitely recommended, especially those disappointed with the TV show that came out in this past weeks. So yeah, those that were disappointed with the Kenobi TV show, read this book. This book is so much better. Just go on and read it. It's much better read than suffering through that show. You'll enjoy it. It will be great. It deals with the life on Tatooine for the exile Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just great, and yeah, I mean, you don't have much to lose. This is gonna be a great read, so go on with it. And with that, well, this is in pretty much the Kenobi Book Podcast. Now, this will be the last State of Star Wars podcast for the next month, because of certain, let's just say, certain real situations will happen that will make it impossible to release a video in a month. So it will take a while for that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. This will be the last podcast in a long while. So with that, we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars video. Bye bye.
Although I'm leaving, the Force will be with you always.
See you guys.
May the force be with you, everyone.